Hi everybody, welcome to our webinar with Tag Meir for Yom Yerushalayim, looking at this interesting day and all of the complexity. And we're joined by two wonderful people from Tag Meir in Jerusalem. We're just waiting for some people to join now. It's lovely to see some friendly faces on the call. Everyone can hopefully see each other, which is a nice change of pace from some of the usual events that we do, which is very one way. We wanted it to be very interactive so everyone can smile and wave. It's lovely to see more people joining now as well. My name is Liam Gatroy. I'm the Executive Director of the New Israel Fund. I want to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where I am here in Randwick, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging. It's a particularly maybe relevant thing to say as we discuss Yom Yerushalayim, with so many claims on the city and so many different perspectives of the day and what it brings, and certainly on the ground what would usually be happening were it not for the ongoing COVID crisis. We're having some more people join, which is wonderful. I want to first get both Gadi and Ruth from Tag Meir to just do a wave so everyone can see who they are. Do you two just want to wave all the way from across the world? Before we get started, people are going to come and go. Before we get started, I want to say a couple of things. One is that we are live streaming this on Facebook. So that means that anything you say, your image will be broadcast on Facebook. So it's important that you know that. If you don't like that, feel free to turn off your video. And of course, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to. Before we get into the real tachlis of the evening, I want to spotlight a great event that we have coming up in about 3 weeks, which is an event with Abi Yehoshua, who is probably Israel's certainly one of Israel's most preeminent novelists, playwrights, authors, and essayists. We are unbelievably excited for this event. Kudos must go in its entirety to Sharon Burge, our program manager, for approaching Abi Yehoshua and bringing him into the fold. He has a long association with the New Israel Fund, and so it's wonderful that we'll be able to talk with him about the new government, the government's plans for annexation, the future of the West Bank, the future of the occupation, and what happens maybe if we no longer can look at a two-state reality and we have to shift our perceptions to thinking about what a one-state reality might look like. That's the conversation we're going to have with him. There is no one better placed in Israel probably to have that discussion, certainly from a moral, philosophical, and political perspective. Mark Baker, who's a member of NIF's International Council and is also a member of our advisory council here in Australia. Mark will be coordinating and leading us through that event. This is just a quick slide to tell you a little bit about Zoom. In case you haven't used the meetings feature before, maybe you've only joined one of our webinars. The first thing that you can do if you want to ask a question, there are two ways. You can type it in the chat. You can see it'll be at the bottom of your screen is a little chat button. You can type in anything. We're going to start with a quick presentation from Ruth and Gadi. So if you have anything during the presentation to ask, best to write it in the chat to make sure that we can get to it. If you want, also you can click the raise hand button, which will be under, I think, the participants button on your screen. Click the little blue hand and we'll make sure that we come to you when kind of at a pause during the presentation or a pause during the discussion. We'll unmute you then and you can come in. Hopefully we can have a nice discussion going on. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to allow Gadi and Ruth to take over and to introduce themselves and also to start the conversation as we talk about racism and shared society on Tag Meir. Thank you to everyone for joining. Go for it, Ruth.
Hi everybody. Nice seeing you from across the world. Gadi is going to start in a second. I'm just sharing my own screen and putting up the small presentation that we made. So I'm going to do full screen mode. Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Great. Okay, Gadi.
Okay. Thank you for coming. My name is Gadi and I will introduce myself, and then Ruth, and then we'll introduce our picture slides in connection to Yom Yerushalayim and racism, as we promised. I was born in Jerusalem. And actually, I'm 8 generations in Jerusalem. Many, many years before the state of Israel was established. And I remember quite well, I was in fourth grade when Sixth Day started. And our school was maybe 2 kilometers from the old city, and was quite an experience for me as a small child in elementary school in Jerusalem. And just after the war on Shavuot, which is not so far from Yom Yerushalayim, we walk to the western wall, Kotel HaMaravi, and this is also something that you, me, very hard to forget. And Tag Meir started, established 8.5 years ago, and we decided to initiate Tag Meir. It's a forum, it's a coalition of around 50 organizations and movements from all over the Israeli spectrum. We have all kinds of religious people, Orthodox, conservative, Reform, secular. We have many, many, many Arab, Muslims, and Christian friends in Tag Meir. And like I said, around 50 organizations. The reason we started Tag Meir is to fight against racism, hate crime, terror, any kind of terror, price tag attacks, Jews against Muslim, Muslim against Jews, or sometimes racism against ultra-Orthodox people in Israel. So I will let Ruth to introduce herself, and then we'll show you the slides. Then we'll have questions. Yes, Ruth.
Okay, thank you, Gadi. My name is Ruth Klein. I was born and raised in Herzliya, which is a city in the center of Israel, but I live here in Jerusalem for the past, I don't know, I think 5 years maybe, and I always dreamed of living in Jerusalem, so it came true. Yeah, I joined Tag Meir, I think close to 2 years ago, and you know, Tag Meir, like Gadi mentioned, is, as we see here on the screen, united against racism, and again, as Gadi mentioned, it brings together people from all sorts, all over the Israeli population, different religious backgrounds, different political opinions. And the idea is to come together around one thing that says, let's stop racism while understanding the danger behind this phenomenon. And we're going to start the slide in a minute, and we're going to talk about what we do specifically on this day of Yom Yerushalayim, Jerusalem Day, and which is our flower march, and we're going to show pictures. Gadi, we're going to start and talk about what we do. So, Gadi, go ahead.
Okay, we'll do it together. What you see in the slides, those are pictures from last year, and this is our flower march in Jerusalem on Yom Yerushalayim. And this picture on the left and on the top, and taken just near the city hall of Jerusalem. And the reason we spread flowers in the Yom Yerushalayim, mainly in the old city, is actually contradiction to the flag march that started many, many years ago. And we don't we didn't mention that in Tag Meir, we don't interfere, or we don't have a collective view on political issues like one state or two state or whatever split the Israeli society. Everyone has his own view, and the same for Yom Yerushalayim. There are many Israelis that don't feel that they have to celebrate this day. Many other Israelis, maybe more, maybe the same, think that they want to celebrate this day. And of course, for the people that live in East Jerusalem, and they are like 40% of the people that live in Jerusalem, the Muslims, this is not their day. And for many of them, it's a very sad day. On that day, on Yom Yerushalayim, there are many Israelis that decided to create this march, flag march. It's Tza'adat Adgalim in Hebrew. Unfortunately, they decided to use this event to create a lot of hate. They march from West Jerusalem to East Jerusalem through the Muslim market in the Muslim quarter near Damascus Gate, through Damascus Gate and Jaffa Gate. They sing hate songs, and also the way they march. And we decided, we tried for many, many years to convince those people not to march that way and to celebrate Yom Yerushalayim in a different way, but we failed. So as a result of that, we create our flower march. And if we didn't have the Corona crisis, we would do it this year as well.
Can I add something, Gadi?
Yes.
First of all, we'll talk soon about what we do exactly this year because of how the Corona affected it. But first, what we do in general, I think that it's important to make clear a few things about the flag march. First of all, it's a very big parade. I mean, thousands of people from all over the country come to that flag march, and they march all over Jerusalem, and you can see them everywhere. It's a very, very big event. And like Gadi said, they specifically want to march through the Arab parts of East Jerusalem to get to the Kotel in order to, they believe, that's how they show their message, you know, especially on this day that is so, you know, happy for some, painful for others, and everybody else in between. They decide that that's the right time to make political and ideological declarations, and therefore they march specifically through the Arab parts of the old city of Jerusalem.
What do you think is the core of the message? What is that ideological political message that they want to make?
If I had to answer, I mean, we should ask them. I think that also different people can give different answers, but I think that also it's important to say I come from the religious nationalist world, and I grew up going to those flag march for years as a child, because everybody goes, schools and families and friends, and it's what you do on Jerusalem Day. And I can only talk from my own experience being there, not talk in the name of anybody else. And I think that the message that you're trying to pass forward to the Arabs seeing you in that day is that not only that we won, we're going to continue winning, and we're going to continue, you know, taking over. And this is our land, and we deserve to be here, and you don't. Again, speaking from my own thoughts and going to those marches. And yeah, it's the idea of showing who's the boss, I think. So that's why specifically going with flags and singing hate songs, like Gadi mentioned, in the Arab parts of the old city, comes to give away that message, yeah, that we're here for good, and that's it. we won the war. I'm going to continue winning it. Gadi, you want to continue talking?
I would go further, and they want actually to show the resident of East Jerusalem that this is not that Jerusalem belongs only to Jews, and that's why they have Israeli flags, and we're talking about for 40,000 people that march inside those small, narrow streets of Old Jerusalem. And you have to understand that above the stores, I don't know how many of you.
You can see in the pictures,
Sure,
Gadi.
I'm sure
See some
most of you spend a little bit time in Old Jerusalem. People live on the second floor above those stores. People, families, and so just imagine this march with flags and the songs create a lot of hate and fear, and they want, the messer is very clear, they want to occupy Jerusalem again and again and again and again. It's a symbolic marching and send this message, very clear message, that this is Jerusalem and it's belonged only to us, and you are just temporarily here. And this is why our march is so important. And we call those flower of peace, with small signs in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. Flower of peace in 3 languages. We give the flowers to the people in the old city, all over the old city. I think that was supposed the 6th year of our marching, and every year we spread more and more flowers.
Maybe
Yes,
I can say another thing about the actual experience of our march, because like we mentioned, on the one hand, you know, if you look at the pictures, it looks like very impressive and a lot of people, but compared to the flag march, you know, it's a different magnitude of things. But I still want to talk about the experience of our flower march, going through those areas, you know, of the Arab shuk, the Arab market, and the Damascus Gate, and going through with flowers that say peace flowers on a day like this, when there's soldiers and police officers all around, and people with flags are already seen all over. And when we went last year, for example, through those streets in that day, there's something so special and meaningful to all the people that join. And everybody that come to this march, you know, when it's over, they say, wow, what an experience, because I can, again, speak from my own personal experience. It's touching, and it's very, very important, because we saw that, you know, what we already knew, that everybody's different at the end of the day. And some people took the flowers gladly and were so thankful and happy for them. And they, you know, they were able to appreciate why we're here and why we're here today, and they showed gratitude. And some people were more, you know, upset and angry, and they said, we don't want anybody coming here. So really the experience varies, and we see different reactions, and it's very, you know, the pictures also speak for themselves. And Gadi, unless you have anything else to add about the flower march, I can go on to talk about what we plan to do this year.
There's, Ruth, in the chat, there's a question about whether you get much negativity when you hand out the flowers as well. Do you want to zoom in a little bit on that question?
Sure. So can I ask another question on the question? I don't know who asked it, and I can't see the chat. I'm sorry, but
that's okay. It's Andrew.
Andrew. So Andrew, hi. Did you mean that negativity from the Arab residents that we hand the flowers to, or from other parts? I mean, I can talk about all of them, but I just want to be specific to the question.
You can unmute yourself, Andrew, if you'd like. And
okay, I can talk about first the Arab residents. Like I already mentioned, it was very mixed, you know, mixed feelings. It's a very mixed feeling kind of day. I mean, different people feel different things in this day from, you know, all over. So like I said, we got some great reactions and some, you know, worse reactions or more angry reactions, and some people that say, oh, it doesn't help us that you're here, you know, you got to first stop the occupation, what are you doing here? Some people said that. Some people said, again, they took the flowers and they put them in the entrance to the store, and they were so proud and happy to show off and say, here, look at this march, look at what's going on here. So the Arab residents' reactions vary. Obviously, there are some, you know, we get some Jewish negative reactions, unfortunately, for people that think that, you know, what we're doing is wrong. And I can say one thing about that, that specifically last year, we make the flower march a few hours before the on Jerusalem Day, a few hours before the flag march. The flag march starts in the evening, afternoon, and we do it earlier. So usually the idea is that we go through those streets before the flag march. So we come there to give a soothing, you know, understanding and reaching out kind of message before people go there with sticks and then sing hate songs and etc. So last year, as we walked from City Hall, as you see the picture here on the left, where people are smiling with their flowers, that's a picture we take before we leave for the actual march. And it was taken, like Gadi mentioned before, next to City Hall. And we walk from there down to Damascus Gate, which is a few minutes walk. And you see the walk of the march on the right, the picture on the right side. And as you look at the picture from the right, you can imagine as we were walking down from the City Hall towards the entrance to Damascus Gate, we were stopped by a group of a lot of young people. I don't know, I don't remember exactly how many, that were basically blocking our entrance. They didn't want to let us go in into the Arab market in the old city. So they stopped, they basically blocked us from stopping, and in order to pass them, they all stood in a circle, and we had to walk through them in order to get to the Damascus Gate. So you can imagine, you see the picture on the right side, all these people cutting through other people with flags and singing songs and going through and entering. And as we entered the Arab market, the other group also followed us and walked behind us. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that there are some Israelis that are uncomfortable with this act of solidarity, which we think that is, you know, very sad and unfortunate. So I can say that, I guess for everybody, we get different reactions, some negative, some very positive, and it really depends where you're looking. So Liam, are there any other questions, or should we just...
There's a question, kind of a wider question about the march itself. But if there's kind of more stuff you wanted to talk about, and then we'll get to Robin's question, which is
whatever you think, Gadi. I think
let's go, and then Robin's question I think will be good at the end of the presentation.
Okay, so we can talk a little bit about what we're doing this year, Gadi, if you want.
Okay.
The next
because of the Corona crisis, we did this year. Because of the Corona crisis, the government will not allow big marching. So on Sunday, it's Eid al-Fitr, the end of the Ramadan. And it's also the ahead of months of Sivan. And 2 days after Yom Yerushalayim. So we will spread our flowers in a neighborhood called Beit Safafa, which is a Muslim neighborhood in West Jerusalem, actually, surrounded by Jewish neighborhoods, and they suffer from many years from hate crime events, and will come with 1,000 flowers and flyers, and we'll with them for Eid al-Fitr. Of course, no connection to our Yom Yerushalayim, so don't celebrate Yom Yerushalayim. But that's our way to let them, our neighbors, feel a little bit happy on those days.
Especially, if I can add, especially now in the time of Corona, that also the Arab, the Muslim population that is celebrating the holidays, they can't do it like every year by, you know, joining for, you know, big meals with a lot of families. So that's another, you know, way for us to show solidarity and bless them with a happy holiday, especially now in Corona. And I also want to add that what we see on the screen are flyers that we made also for Jerusalem Day. We're going to hand out flowers to families and people that have been hurt by hate crime and terror from all sides. Either it's Jews that were hurt by Arab terror or Arabs that were hurt by Jewish terror. We don't differentiate ever, and also not now. And as you see, we hand out in the appropriate language. So some in English, some in Arabic, some in Hebrew. Depends where it's going. And that's another way that we try to, you know, use this day of Jerusalem Day to send a good and solidarity message to others. Anything else, Gadi, that you think about this?
Go ahead. Yeah, with the next slide.
Okay, we're gonna continue.
Okay, this is just to show you what, more pictures, just for you to understand what we're doing in Tag Meir. So it's another, on the picture in the right, it's a mosque not far from Jerusalem, a village called Jabba. This is what you see. It's a typical price tag attack from extreme right-wing settlers towards a village not far from Gush Etzion, not far from Jerusalem, maybe 25, 30 minutes from Jerusalem. In this case, they burned the place, and they wrote nasty graffiti on the wall. You see Nekama in Hebrew, revenge, and this is the idea of price tag attack. It's basically revenge. It can be a revenge against Palestinian or revenge against the Israeli or the army government. They did something wrong according to their ideas, and so they revenge on Palestinian innocent people, burn their mosque, uproot the olive trees, burn cars, damage cars, and sometimes also killed or wounded innocent Palestinian, like we heard this week with the Dawabsha family in a village called Duma. In the picture in the left, it's another mosque not far from Bet Safafa in Jerusalem. Another that happened just a few months ago. They burned the mosque, and you see the picture you see is the people from Tag Meir. We came on Motzei Shabbat on Saturday night. Of course, we coordinate with the people in the mosque, and this is our solidarity visit. We more than close to 200 people were there, just in a few hours notice, and it's not only one visit, many visits that follow after that, and we try to stay in contact with those people.
So I just, maybe just before you move on, just for the sake of some of the people on the call who may not have heard of this phenomenon before of Tag Meir, of price tag, I just want to give a little bit of context. Like Gadi said, it's often a revenge attack. It has often been maybe that the Israeli army will come in and remove a settlement outpost in the West Bank. So this is an unauthorized outpost of a settlement that isn't built with the coordination or approval of the army or the government. Often these are some of the most fringe kind of settlers that have done this. So the army comes in, it says it's not authorized, they'll destroy the settlement because it wasn't authorized. And then as retribution, the settlers, this is kind of just one example, the settlers will then take out a revenge attack either against Palestinians nearby or even against Israelis themselves and say, for every settlement that you destroy, for example, we will go out and we will like Gadi said, we may burn a mosque, or we may burn a church, or we may, destroy property, or we may uproot olive trees. I mean, this is...
Or we may kill a family.
Or we may kill a family, which has happened, unfortunately,
we'll talk about that
before. But this is one of the things that is so important about Tag Meir, which is it's a Hebrew play on words. In Hebrew, Tag Meir is a price tag, and so Tag Meir is a light tag. So you're combating a price tag with light. One of the most powerful things is that it says terrorism is terrorism, whether it's committed by Jews against Arabs or Arabs against Jews. It's still terrorism. We need to name it as such. And actually, when a terror attack occurs, what we need to do is we need to front up and say, as a community, we stand against this. This is the fringe of society. So the majority of society will come out and say, this is not who we are. And that's really the most powerful thing that Tag Meir does. I think that's the symbol that they offer. And so here, where you've seen horrible graffiti in mosques, a horrible situation where mosques have been burnt down, the fact that you're able to shine light on this and say, as a society, we won't stand for it, is a really powerful thing. There's a long history, unfortunately, of price tag attacks. Please.
Sorry, Dan. I can add a few more things that I think of when I look at those pictures. First of all, if you look at the picture on the left from the mosque in Sharafat, you see the walls look brown. And as we entered, people thought, oh, wow, I never seen a mosque that is brown, but maybe, it's a unique design. And then when you move a finger on the wall, you realize it's all black from because it was burnt. It's black from the fire, and it was, smelled like fire. And just being in there a few days after it was set on fire due to this terrorism was very, very meaningful. The whole place was full, as you can see, and it was very, very touching. And also, continuing what you said, Liam, I think that it's important to mention that when we came for this to visit this mosque in Sharafat, unfortunately, we don't have the picture here, but outside of the mosque, there was graffiti with the words Kumi Uri, which is one of the places where the army and some of the fringe groups of right-wing ideology, the army is fighting them, and then in order to show their revenge, they go to this mosque in Jerusalem and just write their name on the walls together with the Star of David and other nasty slogans, and they burn the mosque. So yeah, we try to do light in face of terror, and you can see it here.
Yeah, Kumi Ori is not only the name of a settlement, it's also a name of a book that one of their extreme rabbis wrote. His name is Yitzhak Ginsburg, and is one of the most extreme right-wing rabbi in Israel. And in this horrible book, he said that he wrote that book just after Israel withdrew from Gaza. And his conclusion from this withdrawal is that the right wing should collect young people at the age of pre-army age, around 18, 19, and before the army, before they drafted to the army, and they should receive orders only from God. Actually, in this book, Kumi Ori, he gave them permission in print from a very important rabbi to create price tag attack. And this rabbi is never get arrested, not even 1 hour. Many people, as a result of his books and papers and presses, went to jail. And unfortunately, he's not by himself.
And last thing to add about this, I think that's also important to mention that the people that burned this mosque in Sharafat, as far as we know, they were never arrested. As far as we know, they never paid the price for what they did, which you can't say you cannot say about Arab terrorists that, you know, whatever kind of attack that is, the price is being paid. And we aim to, you know, raise awareness and call for the terrorists that are behind those attacks, that we can see the number of the attacks is going higher year to year. And we're talking about a big number of attacks, and very, very few number of arrests and serious measures in front, you know, against those people. So I think we can move to the next slide. Sorry, that's not the right one. Yeah, Gadi, you wanna?
This is our visit to another neighborhood, solidarity visit, another neighborhood in Jerusalem called Har Nof, after a brutal attack of Muslim terrorists on the synagogue in that neighborhood. It's we create combined delegation of Muslims and Jews, and in that picture you can see people with the white yarmulke are two Muslims, one from a city called Bakal Garbia, and this is the person in the left, person in the right from another city, Kfar Kasem, and the person with the beard is he lost his son in that synagogue. 6 people were killed that horrible attack, and so our friend, our Muslim friend in Tag Meir joined us for that solidarity visit. Very important. Next, Ruth.
And I also want to add that, Gadi, maybe it's nice to mention that they became a part of Tag Meir after Gadi and other people at Tag Meir at the time went to visit them after they suffered the price tag attack. So they already experienced this feeling of solidarity and this visit. They were, you know, they got the visit, and then they realized when it happened on the other side that they have to show the same message, and they felt the need to come to the neighborhood of Har Nof, which is a Jewish neighborhood, and give away the same message to the people that have been hurt, because like we said, comes from the same idea that says that it's terrorism, and, you know, whether it comes from a Jewish hands or Arab hands, it's all terrorism. I want to continue to the next slide. Yeah, Gadi, you can explain about.
This is the Dawabsha family. The picture on the left, 2 terrorists, Jewish terrorists. That was 5 years ago. Attacked a village named Duma. It's in Samaria, and they came with Molotov bottles. The security forces could prove that only one person were there, but this morning I heard the head of the Shabak interview in the Israeli forecast, and he said, we know for sure that 2 people were there because not only because of that, but 2 graffitis, 2 different of handwriting were on the floor, on the wall.
That said revenge. It's important to say that the graffiti slogan said revenge, and they said other Hebrew sentences that they wrote on the wall as they, you know, before or after, as a part of the event, burning the house of the Dawabsha.
Yeah, they burned that the poor family, and you can see the baby Ali and the parents, and there were another brother, Ahmad, that he was 4 years ago, 5 years ago, he was 5 and a half, something like that, something like this, and he just ran away, and he was in the hospital for almost a year with his grandfather, Hussein. We became good friends with the family of Dawabsha. That's the last name, Dawabsha. We became good friends with Hussein Dawabsha. We also collect money for the family, And hopefully this next week, just before Shavuot, we'll visit the Wapsha family because the trial just conclude and the court decide to send Amiram ben Uriel, the person that created this horrible murder, send him from 3 times life of time to prison, and they will appeal to the Supreme Court, but hopefully the Supreme Court will not change the decision. The picture in the
It's
right.
important to mention that it just happened, Gadi, because the conviction by the Bet Mishpat courts was just given 2 days ago, after 5 years. The attack happened in 2015, and just a few days ago, the guy that you see in the picture, in the left picture, his name is Amiram Ben Uriel. I think he's 28 years old or something like that. When he did it, he was much younger. He was married with a child when he did it. And the courts basically declared 2 days ago that he is guilty for murdering the 3 Dawabsha family members and for, harming Ahmad, the other son that Gadi mentioned. So that's very, very hot news here in Israel. It's a big deal. Took a long years, but just happened a few days ago. Yeah, Gadi.
There are some more questions coming through, Ruth. Are there many more slides? I would like to.
No, that's the last slide, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask your questions, please.
Okay, so Robin, you had a good question. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask it rather than just relying on the chat?
Could you show us the question on the slide? Is it possible?
I'm just gonna.
Is it possible to show the question?
No, because it's going to come. Robin, I've unmuted you, so you can ask your question if you'd like.
My question, Gadi, and anybody else is there legislation in Israel against racial incitement? And if there is, has it been used against, for example, the Flag March or sections of the Flag March, and with what results?
Yeah, yeah, there are laws against incitement, and we try to use and to work many ways against the flag marching. We went all the way to Supreme Court, and we failed. And in one case, I remember the judge Eliakim Rubinstein, and he felt completely uncomfortable with the pictures that we showed him. We took pictures and movies from last year marching. He saw the songs, and he was completely shocked. So the decision was that they promised the court that they will do anything they can to prevent those hate songs. And he said that this is in their decision. If it will happen again, then next year they will block this marching, but never happened. So it's a marathon march, and that's why we decided just to show them with our flowers how you can do it, how you can celebrate or Yom Yerushalayim differently. And
so Gadi, like you're saying, a lot of the power of Tag Meir is from the symbol of showing that this is, a minority of people who are racist, who are going out and committing attacks and things like that, and instead bringing a majority voice and saying we are the ones who are in favor of living together, and that where the courts may not be able to uphold shared society, the people themselves can. So maybe Ruth, can you share a little bit about how important that symbol is of coming together, and why that's such an effective and powerful method for pursuing shared society.
Yeah, I mean, I can share it again from my personal experience. I think that when I join all these meetings that we do, there's always something so honest about it and so simple about it. You know, like you said, this symbol. We often think that, you know, change is something that can be achieved very up high, and, you know, if politicians decide something or if the courts decide something. But, you know, being a part of Tag Meir, we see change all the time, because when we come to those people that have been hurt, or like the Flower March or any other solidarity event that we have in Tag Meir, that is the change, because that is coming to people that have been hurt with a very surprising message that comes from the same people. I mean, supposedly the same people that have been hurt, like the mosque that we saw in Sharafat, that was just a few months ago. They walk into their mosque one day and they see some Jewish kids decided that it should be burnt. And they see Jewish slogans, and those people, they're neighbors with Jews, and they're surrounded by Jewish neighborhoods, and a lot of them study and send their kids to learn in the hand-in-hand school, and it's a very, generally speaking, peace and loving community. And when they wake up one day and they see that they're and then we're able to go there and give the exact opposite message and fill up the room with people that in a short notice got this message, and they wanted to be there for them, to tell them that they're not alone. And like you said, the majority of the people are against this behavior. I think that it's very clear to a lot of the Israeli population that the people that are actually making the attacks are a fringe group. Unfortunately, it's changing also. I think that recent polls and, you know, the past few years, with all the incitement and the hate discourse going around, there are more people that hold racist ideologies. But still, the Israeli population thinks, generally speaking, that it doesn't represent us, it doesn't really say a lot about us, but we know that it does, because those people, they carry these attacks in the name of God, in the name of Judaism, in the name of being an Israeli citizen. And when we don't stand up and speak up against them, that's basically as if we did it ourselves, right? In order to fight something, we need to raise a flag and say, no, no, this is not a part of me, this is not a part of my people, and we stand against it. And also, I hope I answered your question, and I also want to add something to what Robin asked before about rabbis. I think that it's not just about the flag march, but also unfortunately, there are some rabbis that share racist ideologies and beliefs, like Harav Shmuel Eliyahu and different rabbis that say to not sell apartments to Arabs or all sorts of things. And in Tag Meir, we try to, first of all, raise awareness and let people in Israel know that there are rabbis that are saying those ideologies loud and clear, and we need to speak against them. So yeah, we try to fight racist sayings and approaches by, like Gadi said, sometimes they got all the way to the Supreme Court, and sometimes it's by raising awareness in the population. And again, Liam, I hope I answered your question.
No, it did, and there's a question in the chat as well that's worth bringing forward from Anne, that, you know, a great number of people voted for Netanyahu and Gantz, and there seems to be some level of, you know, mistrust, mistreatment, rhetoric that comes certainly from the Prime Minister's office directed towards Israel's Arab citizens, the Palestinian citizens of Israel. As that culture of incitement from the political sphere has increased, I guess the first question is, have you seen terror attacks against the communities increase? Or even if you haven't, has it changed the dynamic between Jewish and Palestinian citizens of Israel? And how have you been able to combat that?
Maybe, Gadi, I'll start saying something short and then you can continue. I think that it's clear to see a rise in the attacks towards this population. I think that in the past few years, we see many more attacks within the state of Israel, which means not only in the West Bank, but also within Israel, which means all over Jerusalem, all over up north, near Safat, which is a big city up north, but also all over the country. Kfar Qasem, which is in the center of Israel, we see event after event of price tag attacks that are directed towards the Israeli Arab citizens of Israel. So yeah, I think again, I don't want to draw big conclusions here and say what leads to what, but we do see a big rise in those kind of attacks. And Gadi, maybe you want to add
Or just
more?
maybe before Gadi comes in, have you also seen a rise in Jewish citizens saying, I want to be involved in an anti-racist, pro-shared society agenda? Has that also come to the fore?
I want to believe the answer is yes. Yes, of course. I mean, Tag Meir, we grow as we go, and Gadi can say I wasn't here 7-8 years ago when Tag Meir was founded, but Gadi can testify that it has been growing and more people see importance in this and want to be a part of it.
Yeah, I just want to mention that in the Corona crisis, Israeli society suddenly discovered that like 30-40% of the people that work in the hospitals are Muslims.
Yeah.
And it's all over the country. And doctors, nurses, and people that work in the hospital, in a few hospitals, it's almost 50-50, 50%. And doctors, high-ranked doctors, very important. So suddenly, after the people told the Israeli society for so many years that they are not part of Israel, and they passed this horrible law and Chok Le'om. So that was quite an event, very important. Of course, this is one of our mission, is to focus and to zoom on on hospitals, to show the Israeli society how important they are. And in the last 3 months, the people that actually fight that this health fight, not less important that the people that fight in the Israeli army, and 30-40% are Muslims. It's a marathon race. It's a lot of education, and we need to actually to educate the people in Israel, everyone, including ourselves, especially our leaders, especially our prime minister, that the Muslim people, the Christians people, are equal citizens in the state of Israel. And that was the vision of our founders. And so this is Tag Meir, all about it.
Have you had much international collaboration? Obviously, racism is not certainly not an issue that you only see in Israel. It's prevalent in democracies around the world. Have you had kind of contact with other anti-racism, kind of pro-multicultural organizations around the world? Is there a sharing between them? I know in Australia, it would be interesting to hear how some of Tag Meir's methods could work here, and vice versa. There may be things from Australia that are useful in Israel as well.
I think the answer is that we're always happy to collaborate, and if you know anybody who's relevant for our work, we would love to hear and get in touch with them. No, Gadi, what do you think?
I think that we have so much work in Israel, but if unfortunately, if it will stop, we'll be more than happy to give advice. But we will be more than happy to collaborate with anyone outside of Israel.
I know there are a number of people on the call who've been working on anti-racism and kind of multicultural outreach, bringing together different communities in Australia. So there may be someone here.
Very simple. I mean, it's very simple that like Ruth said, that it's so simple just to buy a few flowers and to go visit someone. It can be a bus driver, happen in Israel a lot. Muslim bus driver, Arab bus driver, that people hit him or curse him just because he's Muslim. So the only thing you need to do is just to find the name of this person, give him a call, tell them, is it possible for us to visit you next week when you'll feel a little bit better? And then like 5 or 7 people, not more than that, even 3, come to visit. And you don't need the international conference for doing such a very simple thing. Anyone can buy 7 flowers and do such a thing all over the world. South Africa, Australia, America, Japan.
Amazing. Well, we're pretty much on the 1 hour mark. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Before we leave, I want to say, I just pasted the link in the chat to the event that we're doing with AB Yehoshua in a few weeks. It would be wonderful to have you join us. He really is one of Israel's treasures, someone who speaks a lot about shared society, about coming together, about the future of Israel, future of Israeli democracy, particularly with annexation looming on the horizon. I really hope that you'll join us for that. I want to really give...
Just want, with your permission, I just want to say something. Your voice is crucially important. And I know you live in Australia, but your voice to what happened in Israel is crucially important. So if you hear on something, incitement, racism, sound like that, just to send a message, email to the embassy, to the embassy of Israel in Australia, or to people you know. Today with computers and emails and WhatsApp or whatever, you all can feel that you live in Israel. So we need your help.
That's a wonderful message. That's certainly the role that we at NIF like to play, is that we see Israel as a partnership between diaspora Jews and Israelis to work for a more equitable, just and tolerant future for everyone.
It's a Jewish message. Yeah. This is our Prime Minister says that this is a Jewish state. This is our Jewish state. So you are part of the Jewish nation. Feel free and interfere, please.
We certainly have a voice, and we can have a voice by participating in events like this. We can have a voice by voting in things like the World Zionist Congress, which is still coming up, and we've been emailing our supporters about. Also, of course, by donating to NIF. It's coming up to the end of the financial year, so we'd love to have your support. A big thank you.
Sorry, Liam, and everybody, if you're not already following our Facebook page, we have a Facebook page in English, Tag Meir. You can search it on Facebook. We would love to see you there. We publish all of our updates there about our events and pictures and other news that have to do with racism in Israel.
It's one of the most powerful Facebook pages that I follow. We'll definitely follow up in an email tomorrow to everyone who's on the call to let you know where to get more information about Tag Meir. We didn't mention at the very top a few wonderful connections that Gadi and Ruth have to our community. Ruth was a surprise to us. It turns out, was it your grandfather is Australian?
Yeah.
There you go. So there you go. That's a wonderful story. You're welcome to come here whenever you like. And Gadi, of course, has, I don't know if you've been to Australia, Gadi, not on an NIF banner, you haven't, but Gadi's son, Avner, has been to Australia a couple of times. Avner is the CEO of Breaking the Silence, an organization that we've worked with a number of times. So it's wonderful to have 2 familial connections to NIF Australia. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. We tried to keep it as a tight 1 hour event. I hope you'll join us in a few weeks for our event with AB Yehoshua. I also hope, like I said, as we near towards the end of financial year, that you'll think about all the wonderful work that NIF does in our general work supporting equality and democracy in Israel, and particularly at this moment with the COVID crisis. We've given more than $50,000 in emergency grants to support mostly people seeking asylum and refugees in Israel who don't have the safety net that other Israelis have. They need help with healthcare, with education, with basic food and toiletries. And so we've been putting a lot of effort into that kind of work. and it really is impossible without the NIF community. So thank you so much to everyone. I really hope this was an uplifting way to have an evening, to learn about the wonderful work that's being done, to shine a light on bad things, but ultimately to come out of it as hopefully as a stronger society and a stronger community in favor of a peaceful and more tolerant Israel. Thank you everyone again. We will talk to you soon, I'm sure. Have a good night.
Thank you.